It's football season, and in the U.S., it's big at every level, professional, college, and even high school. And this year, at the college level, the third generation of a football dynasty will take the field for the Texas Longhorns. As one sports writer said, the biggest pressure won't come from being the quarterback of the number one ranked team, but from the name on the back of the jersey. Arch Manning is the nephew of his famous uncles, Peyton and Eli, and Hall of Fame grandfather, Archie Manning. And for Arch, this is go time. You never know how many seasons you'll get, whether you'll reach the next level. And the Longhorns haven't won a national title in 20 years. And Arch Manning says, quote, "This is what I've been waiting for." What are you waiting for? Glory? Perhaps not football glory, but if you belong to Jesus, glory is waiting for you in his presence. Welcome to Haven Today on this Thursday. I'm David Wollen, sharing the great story that's all about Jesus, and we're in a series called Sing the Gospel Story. Back today with me is Keith Getty. It's a fun conversation, kind of a behind-the-scenes look at the modern hymn writing movement and an insider perspective on the songs that so many of us are singing in our churches today. We may not realize how much thought and care went into crafting them. It's become quite a movement. There are individual artists and hymn writers, of course, but so many of them are now banding together. They're becoming communities of song and hymn writers, and there are several of them out there, and Getty Music is one. And with the Gettys in particular, there are deep connections with this ministry of Haven Today, and they go back about 20 years now. I was really looking forward to having Keith joining me on a Haven Today program, but then this opportunity, this reason for connecting came along and I got really excited. This is going to resonate, I think, with a lot of Christians. It certainly is with me. The Sing Hymnal is for churches, yes, but it's also for the home. And I think it's a callback to something we've lost within the larger modern evangelical culture.
In my grandparents' house, they had hymnals by their bed and hymnals on the piano. But it was all, they usually had it sitting at the piano or sitting on top of the piano, because you could always grab a hymnal. And the idea was that the Lord's worship was by your conscience, you know. But it's also good when you've got it beside your bed, you can just open it and just read through one hymn and think about it. If you're feeling dry in the mornings, those kind of things. And so these, you know, having a Bible and a hymn book, that was what John MacArthur always said. Keith, he says, you can get a Bible and a hymn book by everybody's bedside. Their mornings will be richer and their evenings will be more beautiful. Yeah? And so I think it's so important.
That's Keith Getty, and I could not agree more with that sentiment. It is important. I remember as a kid in my own house, in the homes of my grandparents, both sides, there were hymnals lying around, on the piano, on the coffee table, even on the nightstand. You just don't see that so much these days. So many things are digital now, but there is a place for hard copy treasures that you can hold in your hand, and that's what this is. The Sing Hymnal will become a legacy, an heirloom, but not something you just put on the shelf because it looks classy. This was made to be used, and I could go on and on about why that's true. Let me tell you how I'd use it on any given day. Maybe I'm putting together a message on Matthew 6 like I was doing last week on Haven, and I need just the right song. Well, I looked. There are 9 hymns connected to the text I was teaching on, and it would work exactly the same way in personal devotions and Bible reading. Every Christian home should have a hymnal like this, and I don't know of a better one than this one. They're hot off the press, just releasing this week, and we would love to send you the Sing Hymnal as our way of saying thank you for supporting this ministry of Haven Today. You can call us at 800-65-HAVEN, 800-65-HAVEN, or you can give online at haventoday.org. Again, haventoday.org. This is Haven Today. I'm David Wollen. And now, back with us today, Keith Getty. What is it that makes a hymn a hymn? At least from a layman's perspective, I think that's beginning to shift. I think once upon a time we thought Well, I know a hymn when I hear it, right? It's in 4-part harmony. The piano gets played in a certain way and it sounds old, and it's probably in a key I can't play. Which, by the way, thank you for putting this hymnal in, a little bit easier keys. I noticed that. There's no,
You just got you guys call you modern kids call guitar keys easy kids.
it's like that.
My mom and her sisters, they played everything in E flat, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The flats aren't friendly for guitars, but you avoided
Yeah,
the
yeah.
D flats and the F sharps. So thanks for
Yeah.
that. But but it is more than stylistic. The content is really what you were driving at. I think maybe there's some differentiation stylistically in terms of how a song is constructed, but there is quite a lot of variation in terms of like what differentiates maybe like a chorus or modern song of worship versus something you'd say, yep, that's one of those modern hymns that we've really been shooting for. Is there any other description you'd put around that to help people think like, yeah, that's what this is?
Well, I mean, if you want to look at it from a scientific point of view or a sort of a block theological analysis, a sort of theological scientific analysis would say we're looking for a deeper theology.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for melodies that provide better congregational singing, and we're for songs that last for a longer period of time. That would
Yeah.
be your sort of quantifiable definitions. They'd be probably the three most distinctive quantifiable. But at a deeper level, it really is about writing extraordinary poetry and
Yes.
music that mysteriously match. And so there is no way of AIing a great hymn
Thank you
ultimately.
for saying that. Thank you for saying that.
There is no way of formulating a great hymn. I've had 68 songwriting sessions this year. 68 days I've done a songwriting session, at least one songwriting session. And I haven't done a good song this year. And I've been doing this 25 years and I'm not bad at it. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I'm definitely not the worst at it. And it's probably one of the most sung five catalogs in the world. And I've done 68 days to get none. And so it's hard work. Do you
Yes.
know what I mean? And so many of these poems are by some of the finest poets in history.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is God has made a world. We go right back to Genesis 1, the world that God has made, and they saw that it was good and that things are beautiful and textural and warm our hearts and minds. It's not because we're some kind of shallow fallen people who are worshiping idols. It's because God made us to love beauty and
Mm-hmm.
respond to it. And so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful people and beautiful stories and beautiful songs and beautiful mountains and trees all warm our hearts in ways that science can't quantify.
That's right.
And so it's so important as historic Protestant Christians that we have a high view of art, but it's also so important as contemporary Protestant Christians that we have a high view of congregational
Yep.
singing, because while God loves the arts, actually singing is at a level above that because all of us are
Uh-huh.
commanded to sing. It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough to be a kind of a cool guy who gives a ton of money to his church, nor is it enough to be a theological person who knows better than everybody else and what's correct, but whose heart never warms and whose eyes never cry when it comes to singing the truths of God. God made us to sing, and it's part of what makes a healthy and holy person. So
Mm.
there's a lot of work to do in our community, I think, to really help to build healthy singing churches.
Amen to that. Well, thank you for just filling some of that in. I'm glad you did, because that is what you've been looking for and bringing together in this hymnal, the Sing Hymnal. And I mean, I've seen some pictures of you, probably social media type things of just working on it. You've been laboring at this, what, Keith? This has taken you more than a year.
Yeah, it was. But we started. Yeah, we started looking at the vision of it, the concept of it in 19. It took us about. The contract wasn't done till 22, and then we got really serious about it. And so we wrote for 2.5 years into some of the gaps. I mean,
Yeah.
again, 70% of the hymns in this book are old hymns written before I was born.
Thank you for that
Thirty
too.
percent. I mean, 30% are hymns from this last 12. Sorry, 25% will be hymns
Yeah.
from this movement, because like any, the famous hymnals, the ones of Luther, Wesley,
Yes.
Watts, hymns for the great sort of the Vaughan Williams hymnal. I forgot what the name of it was. Each of those hymns are marked by the fact they not only were amazing collections of hymns that preserve the ancient,
Yes.
but they also were movements that had just seen a whole new collection of hymns, and they were
Right.
the first hymnal to do it. So in a sense, this is kind of matching that, in that or about 25% of it is modern hymns that you're getting to see in hymnal form for the first time, which is great.
Which is so great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and so that's an exciting thing. That's an exciting thing as well.
Yep. And speaking of how it's received and what people do with it, I got my pre-release copy. Thank you, Getty's and Crossway. And so it arrived in the mail, and it was delivered right as I was talking with somebody who is just in my church and was dropping by, and she saw me pull it out, and she looked at it for 3 seconds and goes, "I want one of those on my piano." And I was like, well, good, because I can help you with that. But I think that there's going to be that excitement and draw. And frankly, I'd add to it. If you've got a piano in your house, like this, put this on it. It's gonna inspire everybody who sits down at your piano.
In my grandparents' house, they had hymnals by their bed and hymnals on the piano. Or in the piano stool in those days, if you had the piano stool. But you could always, honestly, that's not even true. I say it was in the piano stool. I'm sure it was sometimes, but it was all, they usually had it sitting at the piano or sitting on top of the piano, because you could always grab a hymnal. And the idea was that the Lord's worship was by your conscience, and I speak to myself here because, I'm a sport fanatic, but when I go to bed at night, it's good to watch, Liverpool or Titans or whoever it is and all that kind of stuff. But it's also good when you've got it beside your bed, you can just open it and just read through one hymn and think about it. If you're feeling dry in the mornings, those kind of things. And so these, having a Bible and a hymn book, that was what John MacArthur always said. Keith, he says you can get a Bible and a hymn book by everybody's bedside. Their mornings will be richer and their evenings will be more beautiful. And so I think it's so important.
Yeah. That's right. Well, if I could have you talk about this one just a little bit more. Obviously, you've thought a lot about the way churches worship, and Christians individually too, but in particular at the gathering of believers every week, and the structure of a worship service. And I was reading just the foreword that you and Kristen wrote, which is beautiful, by the way. And you were talking about the worship service section of the hymnal, and you used a phrase, and I thought, I'm going to use that all the time on Haven from now on. You described the arc of the gospel, as in I think story arc, right? But you described how church services often are structured in such a way. Can you tease that out just a little bit more? Because I think that's a really important concept.
Yeah, I think so much. I mean, here's the thing: beauty in life, all beauty, is really about shape. When you think about it, a beautiful person, doesn't have a fat head like me. They have got these like incredible jawline and everything looks in the right place and in proportion, and a beautiful mountain ranges. If you go to the Rockies and look there, it's beautiful. When I go home to Ireland and look at the coastline, there's something about it. I was just in the Mediterranean with the girls, showing them some of the historic churches of Italy, and both the landscape, but the architecture of these buildings was just mind-blowing. It was just so rich and so beautiful. And so there's something about the shape of our services that says something. I'm not trying to make a free churchman or a Baptist or a Pentecostal become a liturgist tomorrow. But if our services only move to starting with God, acknowledging our sin and our need for the gospel, and our celebration that we rejoice not that the devil shuddered, but that our names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And if that's how we began our services, suddenly the shape of our whole service, everything afterward makes sense. All the other stuff, about fixing things, improving things, learning things, giving offerings to things, praising things, everything else would suddenly, and all our fellowship that we have afterwards, all of it will be shaped better. And then after that, of course, we can shape our prayer and our teaching and all those things. So that's just a hugely important thing. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to find ways to help people think about that, awesome. and do that a little bit better.
I love that. And that's a good spot to pause our conversation today. And tomorrow on Haven Today, we'll be diving into some of the great hymns of the faith, both old and new, exploring the theology behind them and some of the history as well. But later in this series, we'll also be returning to another part of this conversation that I recorded with Keith Getty. I'm very much looking forward to sharing that with you. And before we go, I want you to hear this. It was recorded ahead of the Sing Hymnal's release. Keith and Kristen Getty sharing their hearts, sharing their why behind the vision for the hymnal.
My grandfather went to a Presbyterian church just like this one down the road from here. And he sang in the choir for 85 years. And I'll never forget when he finally went into a home and no longer knew my name anymore, he could still sing along to hymns of the faith. Even when he had lost his mind, his memory, and so much of what he held dear in life that had been his security, he could still find a level of consolation and joy and peace in singing the hymns that he'd sung his whole life. We have a grave concern for our generation. When they get to that age, what will they have been singing all their lives?
Hymnals do so many things to help us. They gather a lot of different songs from a lot of different times in history. They meet you as a child, they meet you as a mother, they meet you in the middle years of life, they meet you at the end of life. They speak to all of life in one space.
Traditionally, what a hymnal is trying to do is not the same as the fun songs we sing for a season. You know, it's perfectly right for me to want to sing songs that our kids can hear in their cultural voice. But that's not what a hymn book is doing. A hymn book is giving you the songs you carry with you for life.
The Sing Hymnal is our way of saying thank you for your gift to support Haven Today, which is here only because, friends, listeners like you who are standing with us make a gift. And that gift keeps this gospel-centered ministry on the air. And you can make your gift by phone at 865-HAVEN. Again, 865-HAVEN. Or you can give online at haventoday.org. Again, haventoday.org. I'm David Wollen. Won't you come back again next time? We'll be keeping it all about Jesus. It's the great story here on Haven Today.